The canyon lifted out of the world like a hymn carved from stone, thin air stitched with the sound of a distant creek and the hush of wings you never quite saw. May Hollis rode the switchback steady, fingers light on the reins, her bay mare, Sparrow, testing each step like truth on a Sunday. Afternoon light fell, slanted and cool here, the kind that made colors honest, rust-red walls, juniper dark as old ink, sky clean enough to make a person rethink their secrets. Somewhere below, water talked to rock in a language of patience and persistence. Sparrow halted where the trail should have continued, her ears shooting toward a shadowed alcove. May felt the shift under saddle, the subtle gather that meant something here is wrong. She slid down, ground-tied the mare, and stepped into the shade where the heat softened and a faint metallic smell lingered. The body sat half upright against a slab. A man in trail clothes, hat gone, hair stiff with dust, skin not quite leathered. Death knew enough that the desert hadn't finished its work. One boot toe pointed neatly forward. The other angled like it had been surprised. May didn't speak. Names weren't ready yet. Silence is the first measure you take at a scene. She scanned. No buzzards, no struggling tracks. The man's right palm pressed his side. A bloom of dried brown told its story plain. The wound was center low, a neat entry through canvas. Not a tumble off the rim, not a snake's apology. Close-range shot, calm hand. She crouched with a handkerchief and rolled the wrist. Under the dirt, a miner's callus, but not deep. Someone who worked more with paper lately than picks. A brass watch chain curved at his vest. She unhooked the chain gently with 2 fingers. The watch itself, cracked face, stopped at 5:17. Dust had crusted the rim except one clean arc, like a thumb had wiped it while he was dying. Dying men wipe time for comfort. Living men wipe it to lie. In his vest, she found a folded page torn from a notebook. 3 lines of numbers, a name, E, Trask, and a crude sketch of the canyon mouth. Below it, a phrase in a tidy hand. North wall sings at noon. May let the paper breathe. Sparrow snorted, disturbed by the smell of iron. Boot prints? The alcove floor held a thin crust of dust over stone, the kind that keeps a memory if no one scuffs it. 2 sets. The dead man's pointed toe prints, and another set broader, heels worn down on the outside. The broader prints came in, stood close, too close for friendliness, then left steady. No drag. No panic. A third sign. Faint. The rounded dots of a walking stick or surveyor's staff. The canyon took the echo and handed it back as advice. Follow the thin parts. Ignore the loud ones. May tied her hair back and took measure of the sky. She searched the perimeter. On a ledge above the corpse, caught in a tuft of prickly pear, a thread of blue cloth fluttered linen, not workshirt cotton. She tweezed it free and tucked it into her pocketbook. On the slab itself, just above the man's shoulder, a smear of coal black marked the stone, the kind a lamp leaves when set careless. She sniffed it. Grease, lamp oil, and a hint of lavender. That combination lived in ledgers and in churches, not in a miner's camp. Sparrow stamped, hating the scent of endings. May pressed a palm to the mare's neck. I know. Time in a canyon runs on light and water. She still had 2 good hours before the north wall swallowed day. May pulled a blanket from her saddle and covered the man, tucking the corners like a courtesy. I'll be back with your name, she said. Not sure whether she said it for him or herself. She scribed the alcove in her mind. Angles, distances, small lies the ground tells when asked by the wrong person. Then she climbed above to the bench the sketch had hinted at, a shelf where the whole bowl of the canyon lay open like a palm. At noon, the north wall did sing wind finding a seam, turning rock into a breathy flute. Beneath that sound, a smaller rhythm ticked. the faint dribble of seep water over a lip, landing in a hidden trough, polished by centuries. People would come here to drink and to count their sins. On the underside of the lip, cut with an impatient knife, May found initials E.T. and the number 17. 17 of what? Days? Steaks? Dollars? She rubbed the cuttings with the pad of her thumb. The burrs were fresh. Dust had not yet settled in. From the bench, she studied the approach routes. 3 ways in if you don't have wings. The mule trail she'd used, a narrow goat path along the south wall, and a hidden defile behind a clump of juniper where the stone darkened from occasional water. The broader boot tracks had come from the goat path. The stick marks favored the defile. 2 men, or one with 2 habits. The numbers on the paper asked for company. 41138. Not coordinates too short, not dates, no months above 12. Maybe claim markers. The canyon had fed miners on rumors for 20 winters. May descended to Sparrow, sketched the scene in her pocket notebook, and saddled up. Bodies draw coyotes after sundown. So do secrets draw men. She didn't aim to leave either unattended. The nearest town sat 3 hours downslope Pine Lantern, a sawmill, 2 stoves that worked when sober, and a sheriff who had learned that some cases walked better in May Hollis's boots than his own. She set Sparrow into a careful trot, letting the mare save her knees around loose scree. Evening cooled the air, and the creek sang louder, a tired person's reward for not giving up. Pine Lantern smelled of fresh-cut pine and regret. May went first to the sheriff's office. Harrigan sat with his boots on the desk and his hat over his eyes, like a stage curtain that refused to rise. "Don't tell me," he said without looking. "You found trouble where I sent you for quiet." "Found a man where he shouldn't be," May answered. She laid the watch, the folded page, and the blue thread on his desk. Harrigan sat up slow, the way a man does when he senses work is about to outrun his excuses. He read the page twice. "E. Trask," he said. "Emmett Trask. Surveyor for the Alta Sierra Mining and Milling Company. Been in and out a month measuring other folks' futures. Lodge room at the Lantern Rose. Paid cash. Asked no questions. Alive? He was this morning. Not anymore." Harrigan's jaw worked. "You leave him up there?" "Covered him. He's got patience. I'm low on it." The sheriff's eyes slid to the blue thread. "That's not Trask." He wore brown like a man trying to be a wall. "Weakly as die." "Weakly as nice." May nodded. Someone else stood close. Someone who perfumes ledger pages. The Lantern Rose kept a register that told more lies than its guests did. May asked for Trask's room and got a look that charged extra. Coins solved it. The room smelled of soap, lamp oil, and the particular loneliness of men who sort lines more than they live them. On the table, a map case, open. Inside, 3 rolled plats with careful inks and 2 with hasty pencil revisions. The revised plats shifted boundary points along the creek by the width of a boot and called it correction. May smiled without humor. Paper crimes. The gentlest kind to commit, the hardest to prove. Under the mattress, she found what careful men hide from the version of themselves they show the world. A little tin of peppermint lozenges and a letter folded to exhaustion, addressed but unsent. Eliza Pine Lantern is less a town than a rumor. They have given me a pistol and a promise. The pistol is heavier. May read the rest without moving her boots. The letter ended 3 pages later with the line, "If I send for you, it will be because the place is honest. I fear I will not." The ink had puddled once, as if a hand trembled, or the pen paused to pray. Footsteps sounded in the hall, firm, unhurried. May slid the letter back, closed the case, and turned as the door eased open. A woman stood there in a blue linen dress, sleeves rolled neat, hair pinned with the kind of precision that prefers answers to questions. She carried a ledger and a scent of lavender. "You're not Mr. Trask," she said mildly. No, May answered. I was about to say the same to you. Well, end quote. A pause, then a tilt of the mouth. Evelyn March, Alta Sierra's bookkeeper. Mr. Trask missed a meeting. I wondered if his punctuality had failed on him, or someone else had. May Hollis, May said, offering nothing else. Evelyn's eyes took inventory without moving boots. Dust, the telltale grit that clings to people who were recently near a fight with God's gravity. You've been up canyon, she said. It wasn't a question. I have. And Mr. Trask hasn't. Something in Evelyn's face flinched, then learned to keep still. He's delayed? He's dead. A full second passed, like a coin dropped into a well, falling, then finally finding bottom. Evelyn lowered her eyes to the ledger, as if the numbers might rearrange into an explanation. How? Shot? Calmly. Who? I was hoping your ledger knew. Evelyn moved to the table, opened her book with a soft thump. Columns, dates, names that looked harmless if you didn't know how to read what lived between them. We've been buying water rights, Mrs. Hollis. Miss Hollis. Small purchases, reasonable offers. Some folks said yes, some waited for a better yes. And Trask measured fairness for us. A tiny quirk at her lip said the euphemism tasted bad. But there's another buyer, private, paying in coin, not paper. I've seen the same hands deposit unusual amounts at the bank. They wear trail dust, but speak like boards. May leaned over the ledger. Names repeated: Berryman, Caldwell, Eaton, and at the edges, small payments to a Judge Alton for filing. The amounts were off by a hair, a pattern you feel in your bones before you prove it. Trask got between rich men and a creek, May said. That gets you a sermon or a grave. Evelyn's fingers paused on a figure. He told me the north wall sings at noon, she murmured. I thought he was courting poetry. He was courting proof. May closed the ledger gently. Blue linen leaves a thread when it's careless. Evelyn's gaze flicked to May's pocket. She exhaled once. I went up yesterday, Evelyn said finally. He asked me to hear the wall. We argued instead. I told him the company would never sign a map that moved a boundary at night. He said the map was already signed, and I was late to my own conscience. I left before noon. Her voice thinned. He was alive when I left. Who knew you were meeting him? Everyone who reads my schedule, and 2 men who don't. The kind who sit outside offices, pretending not to listen. May nodded. Tomorrow we climb again. Bring your ledger and your courage. Evelyn's jaw set. Both are portable. Harrigan agreed to send 2 deputies at dawn, men who preferred rope to thought, but could be trusted to follow a footprint when pointed at it. May slept little. The canyon's map kept rearranging behind her eyes. Goat path, defile, bench, the slab where the man's hat never made it back to his head. At first light, she and Evelyn rode out, Sparrow steady between them, the ledger wrapped in oilcloth against the morning chill. The canyon received them with its usual secular grace. May felt the day tilt toward decision. Stone remembers. Water remembers. If they listened right, the truth would start speaking. Morning unrolled, thin and silver, the kind of light that asks for quiet. The canyon rose ahead like a prayer written in stone, each wall a verse, each echo a reminder that even silence travels. May Hollis rode point, her bay mare stepping sure among shale and shadow. Behind her came Evelyn March, riding straighter than someone used to desk work should. The ledger in her saddlebag knocked softly with each stride. 2 deputies followed far back, boots creaking, eyes restless. The air had that early taste of metal storms, thinking of building themselves by evening. By mid-morning, they reached the split where the trail forked, left into the main basin, right toward the goat path May remembered. She dismounted, crouched low, and brushed the dust with her glove. 2 new sets of prints, one narrow-heeled, one broad. The narrow pair had gone in last night. The sand still lay loose in them. "They've been here," she murmured. Evelyn slid down beside her. Following Trask's ghost, May shook her head, chasing his map. The deputies exchanged looks. Both unslung their rifles. One spat into the dust, as if baptizing himself against the outcome. The climb narrowed into single file. Rocks leaned overhead, forcing riders to bow their heads like penitents. Somewhere above, a raven called. Its voice, echoing double-A, tricked the walls like to play. When they reached the bench where the canyon opened wide, May raised her hand to halt. The alcove below was, as she'd left it, blanket over the body, Saguaro's shadow cutting it neat in half. But new boot tracks circled it now, stamping impatience into the sand. Someone had lifted the blanket and set it back badly. The man was no longer alone. May drew her revolver. "Stay mounted," she told the deputies. She signaled Evelyn to follow on foot. The air was still enough to hear Sparrow breathing. They moved down the slope slow, every step choosing its next carefully. Then, a scrape of metal on stone. To the left, behind a spur, May flattened a hand. The deputies fanned. One left, one right. A man stepped into the light. Hat pulled low, coat city clean. His boots matched the broad prints from yesterday. Heels worn outward, arrogance inward. In his hand, a Colt that gleamed with ownership. "Miss Hollis," he said smoothly, "and Miss March. Always a pleasure finding the help doing my job." "Mr. Caldwell," Evelyn said, her voice a blade wrapped in linen. "Or should I say thief?" He smiled without mirth. "Thief is such a blunt word. I prefer broker of opportunity." May's gun never wavered. "You shot Trask." Caldwell's smile thinned. He was going to ruin a year's work. Maps don't need martyrs. "Maps don't bleed," May said. He tilted his head toward Evelyn. "Your companion helped more than she'll admit. Who do you think delivered me the schedules, the plats, the measurements?" Evelyn's breath hitched, color draining. "I filed them properly, nothing more." "Ah," Caldwell said. "And yet here you are." May saw the lie for what it was, a hook baited for chaos. "She's here to make it right," May said. Caldwell lifted his revolver an inch. "Right? Nothing's right in the mining business, darling. Only profitable." Then came the sound of sliding shale, one deputy losing footing above. Caldwell fired reflexively upward. Rock burst near May's shoulder. She returned one measured shot. It caught his hat brim, spinning it away. He dove behind a boulder, cursing in language that came from bank offices, not saloons. "Stay down," May shouted to Evelyn. Dust rolled like smoke through the basin. The deputies returned fire. One bullet sparked off stone inches from Caldwell's boot. "Hold," May barked. "He's boxed in." Caldwell laughed dryly. "You think walls stop words? I've written bigger men into nothing with ink." He popped up, fired twice, then ducked. The shots whined overhead, useless. May edged along the right flank, using the wall's rough edge for cover. "You talk too much for a guilty man," she said. He smirked. "Talking's cheaper than dying." She moved closer until his reflection shivered faintly in her gun barrel. "That's where you're wrong." One more step and the north wall sang. The wind found its seam again, that hollow chord of sound like breath through a bottle. It rolled down the canyon, trembling the air. Caldwell froze for half a heartbeat, startled by the ghost of what he'd done. May used that pause and moved. When her boot scraped stone, he turned, but too late. The deputy's rifles cracked together. One slug punched his shoulder, spinning him sideways. The Colt fell, clattering down to rest near the dead man's boot. Caldwell hit the ground hard, groaned once, then stilled. The singing wall went on, softer now, almost approving. Evelyn ran to May's side. "Is he?" "Alive," May said. "Barely." She kicked the revolver aside, then knelt beside him. His eyes fluttered open gray, sharp even through pain. "You'll hang," she told him. He gave a half smile. "Hangings are for poor killers. Then I'll make sure you qualify." She bound his arm with her bandana, not out of mercy, but evidence preservation. Evelyn stood silent, watching the wind stir Trask's blanket again. "He deserved better than dying alone," she whispered. May looked at the body. He didn't die alone. The canyon kept him company. They carried Caldwell down the trail, slung over a spare horse, his blood marking the path like reluctant punctuation. By dusk, they reached Pine Lantern again. Harrigan met them halfway, squinting at the sight. "Well, damn," he said. "I was hoping this day'd stay simple." May handed him the ledger. "There's your confession written twice, once in blood, once in ink." Evelyn dismounted slow, her gloves trembling. "I helped without knowing," she said softly. May studied her. "Knowing starts when you admit it." Harrigan nodded. "We'll let the judge decide degrees of guilt. But this one," he jerked his chin at Caldwell, "he's pure." 3 days later, the trial filled the tiny courthouse till men stood on barrels outside. Evelyn testified, voice clear but weighted. The ledger's figures spoke louder than she did. May stood near the door, hat in hand, watching truth do its quiet work. Caldwell tried to charm, then threaten, then collapse into self-importance. None of it mattered. The verdict came before sundown. Guilty, with gallows postponed till spring thaw. Justice, like desert rain, late, but real enough to taste. That evening, the town breathed differently, shoulders lower, talk softer. Harrigan bought a round for his deputies and muttered, "Ain't often paperwork buries a man faster than a bullet." May smiled thinly. Bullets end men. Paper ends reputations. Evelyn approached with a wrapped parcel. "I went through Trask's belongings," she said. "This was meant for someone." She handed May the letter, the one to Eliza. The seal was new. "Would you deliver it?" May looked at her. "Why me?" "Because you listen better than most men here." May tucked the parcel inside her coat. "Where?" "Silver Creek, 2 days west." The ride to Silver Creek wound through high pine and morning frost. Sparrow's breath steamed in rhythm with May's thoughts. The letter weighed light, but carried heavy. She thought of Trask's careful penmanship, of numbers that turned to guilt, of how good people get bent around the greed of others. At night, she camped under a sky so full of stars, it looked crowded. Somewhere in that brightness, she hoped the man who'd timed his last breath at 5:17 had found peace that didn't depend on proof. Silver Creek appeared as smoke before it became houses, timber, roofs, a single church steeple leaning like a weary sentinel. The postmistress pointed her toward a narrow white cottage with lilac bushes stubborn against the cold. May tied Sparrow and walked to the door. A woman opened it before she knocked mid-30s, eyes gray like Trask's, wearing loss the way some wear scarves. Functional, familiar. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I have a letter," May said. "From Emmett Trask." The woman's breath caught. "He wrote again?" "Yes, ma'am," May said softly. "This one made the distance." Inside, the house smelled of soap and wood smoke. Eliza Trask broke the seal with hands that wanted to shake but didn't. She read in silence. Once she smiled. Once she closed her eyes long enough to bless a memory. Then she folded the pages and set them on the table. "He always thought proof could fix people," she said. "I told him sometimes you just have to tell the story right." May nodded. He told it. You'll read it in the papers soon. Eliza poured 2 cups of tea. Then sit. The desert makes people thirsty for more than water. They talked until shadows lengthened across the floor. May told her only what comfort allowed. How he died trying to make wrong things right. How he chose the canyon because truth sounds clearer near stone. Eliza listened with the calm of someone who's already done her crying. When May rose to leave, she pressed the blue linen thread into Eliza's hand. He kept this with him, May said. Thought it meant something. Eliza smiled through damp eyes. It was from my dress. He tore it when he left that morning. Said he'd bring the rest back. Guess he did. May rode out at dawn. Silver Creek shrank behind her until it was just smoke again. She followed the ridgeline east, the sun climbing at her back. By midday, she reached the high canyon once more. The blanket still covered the stone alcove, but someone, maybe Harrigan's men, had raised a simple cross of cedar there. May dismounted, stood beside it, and laid her palm on the rough grain. You found your proof, she said softly, and you gave it to the right people. A gust rose, touching her hat brim, whispering through the cut in the north wall. The wall sang again, same low, hollow tone, but now she heard warmth in it, less warning, more farewell. Sparrow flicked an ear, listening too. May smiled. Yeah, she murmured, I hear it. She knelt, brushed the last dust from the base of the cross, and left a small copper coin, a habit she'd picked up from her father. Payment for a story told true. Then she turned her face to the sun, let the warmth find her eyes, and felt the canyon exhale. On the ride back to Pine Lantern, the wind carried the scent of rain over stone, rare, sharp, cleansing. Evelyn would be gone by now, bound east to testify against her own employers. Harrigan would file reports no one read. But somewhere in those pages, May hoped, the lines would remember the canyon's song, the thread, the time on the broken watch, the quiet work of a woman who couldn't stop asking why. By the time May reached the ridge above town, the sun was bleeding into purple. She reined in and looked back toward the distant canyon, its walls dark, its music faint. Sparrow stamped once, impatient for supper. May chuckled. All right, girl, we've done our part. She tipped her hat to the horizon. Rest easy, Trask. The wind's got your story now. Then she rode down into the glow of lamplight. The sound of hooves, steady as a heartbeat. And somewhere far behind, the north wall kept singing, a single note of truth the desert would never unlearn.